So, are you eligible for the no tax on tips provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2025? The act introduces a new federal tax deduction for tip income. Effective 2025 through 2028, eligible employees and self-employed individuals may deduct up to $25,000 in qualified tips earned in jobs that are listed by the IRS as customarily and regularly receiving tips on or before December 31st, 2024. General eligibility criteria. On September 2nd of this year, the U.S. Treasury and the IRS released a list of occupations eligible for the temporary no tax on tips deduction. The law applies to workers in 8 industry categories that have traditionally and customarily received tips. The Treasury Department is responsible for publishing an official list of eligible occupations. Examples of roles that would qualify are in the food and beverage service, restaurant servers and dishwashers, bartenders, baristas in full-service cafes, food servers at non-restaurants such as residential care facilities, and hotels, bakers, cooks, chefs, host staff at restaurants, coffee shops, lounges, and food prep workers. In the hospitality industry, bellhops, maids, and housekeeping cleaners, concierges, baggage porters, and motel, hotel, and resort desk clerks. Transportation, taxi, rideshare, delivery drivers, pedicab, carriage drivers, chauffeurs, home movers, shuttle drivers, parking attendants and valets, charter bus drivers, water taxi drivers, rickshaw drivers, and personal vehicle cleaners. Personal services industry, house sitters, nannies, and child care providers, home health aides, tutors, pet caretakers, private event planners, videographers, portrait and event photographers, and officiants for weddings and funerals. Home service, plumbers, electrician, home maintenance, cleaning and repair workers, locksmiths, groundskeeping and home landscaping workers, and roadside assistance workers. Personal appearance and wellness, hairdressers, shampooers, hairstylists, nail technician, waxing technician, cosmetologists, barbers, masseuses, tattoo artists and piercers, skincare specialists, exercise trainers, tailors, cobblers, cordwainer workers, and makeup artists. Entertainment, gambling dealers, gaming attendants, sportsbook riders and runners, cage workers, booth cashiers, and change people or change attendants, mobile cashier that works on the floor of the casino. Musicians, dancers, and singers, DJs that work clubs, parties, and other events outside of radio, digital creators such as podcasters, streamers, social media influencers, locker room, dressing room, and coat room attendants, ticket takers, ushers, and lobby attendants. There's some income limitations, though. The deduction begins to phase out for individuals with a modified adjusted gross income of over $150,000, and if they're married filing jointly, it's $300,000. The deduction phases out at a 10% rate until it reaches $0. For single taxpayer who claims the maximum $25,000, the deduction would reach $0 at $400,000 of modified adjusted gross income, and for the married couple at $550,000. Now, in order to get this no tax on tips, you've got to provide proper and accurate reporting. Tips are required to be reported to your employer and accurately reflected in your annual tax forms, your W-2, your 1099, or your 4137. What tips to report? Report to your employer only cash, check, or debit and credit card tips you receive. If the total tips are below $20 for any one month, you don't need to report those tips to that employer. Non-cash tips do not need to be reported to your employer. For example, if you tip pool or tip split, only report the tips you receive, but don't report to your employer tips you pass on to other employees. The deduction only applies to qualified tips, which are voluntary, non-negotiated cash or charge tips from customers. It does not apply to mandatory service charges, or automatic gratuities. And you've got to have a valid Social Security number. Now, some people are going to say, you don't pay taxes on tips you don't report. Well, number one, that's illegal and you could face legal sanctions. I don't recommend it. In the restaurant industry, as I understand it, servers are supposed to report their tips by the 10th of the following month. And I'm also told that restaurants are supposed to report 8% of meals the server was responsible for. So there's some reporting, even if you never tell your boss about your tips. Okay, both itemizing and non-itemizing taxpayers are eligible for this deduction. What this means is if you just take the standard deduction, this is still something you take in addition to that. If you're a self-employed business in a specified service trade or business under Section 199A, you're not eligible. Yeah, and if you're an employee of said employer, you're not eligible. Taxpayers are required to file jointly if married to claim the deduction and include their Social Security number on their return. Now, there's some likely ineligible individuals and occupations, like some of the non-customary tip jobs are fast food workers, back of the house restaurant staff, concession stand attendants, counter-only baristas or cashiers and takeout-only locations, retail store cashiers and stockers, takeout window staff with minimal customer interaction, workers who receive only occasional or unreported tips, and supervisors and managers. Note, if you're a non-resident alien, you're not eligible for this deduction. The deduction only applies to federal income tax. All reported tip income is still subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes, known as FICA taxes, just like regular wages. For 2025, the rates for employees are 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare. And this deduction disappears completely for single filers with a modified adjusted gross income over 400,000 and married filing joint over 550,000. Key exclusions. Service charges and automatic gratuities are not considered voluntary tips. Tips must be reported on your W-2, 1099, or 4137. And you still got to pay payroll taxes. State tax treatment may vary. How to claim the deduction. For the 2025 tax year, you will claim your deduction on your federal tax return filed in 2026. 2026, the IRS is expected to adjust withholding tables, so allowing workers to receive the tax benefit with each paycheck. Set up a meeting with your financial professional, because as you can see, it's a little more complicated than we thought. The no tax on tips provision offers significant tax relief for workers in traditionally tip rules. However, eligibility is limited to those occupations where tipping is regular and expected part of compensation. Workers in counter service and fast food roles may not qualify unless tipping is customary and properly documented. It's a great benefit for eligible workers who can take advantage of it. However, like anything financial, it may be more complex than you had anticipated. Reach out to us, let us know how we can help you work through the numbers and see how they impact your finances now and in the future. We can also help you build goals and design a blueprint to work towards those goals. Please contact your tax advisor or HR department for further clarification on how this provision may apply to your specific role. And here are some of the sources. Feel free to contact me if you don't get them all in this thing across the screen, this brief flash across the screen. Once you graduate, be it from welding school, engineering school, or law school, you're going to need a different plan for each of these stages that's tailored to your individual situation. During your working years, primary thing is, am I saving enough and is it in the right place? Glide path to retirement, which I define as the last 10 years prior to retirement. Am I saving enough and is it in the right place? And retirement. Will the USS retirement be ship-shape on the appointed day? And legacy. Does what I worked hard for, I skipped over retirement. How do I avoid running out of money before I run out of life? And legacy. Does what I worked hard for get to where I want it to after I'm done with retirement? I can be reached at herweyerfinancial.com. I do in-person, Zoom, and phone appointments. I am licensed and registered across several states and can easily add states if there's a need. you'd like to schedule an appointment, click on the schedule appointment button seen there in the upper right-hand corner of my website. Want to see more videos like this? Click on my YouTube button. It's the red one, 2 ones over. If your friends want more information, they can follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. For those who prefer the good old-fashioned telephone, 518-631-2569. Do not text that number. We'll both be sad because I won't get it. There's a special texting number below. Opinions voiced in this material are for general information only, not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual.